in the master plan. But if you don't do what you're supposed to be doing, then the benefit that you were going to add, right? What you were going to give to the world now isn't going to be out there. So you might affect somebody else's situation, right? And they might have to find a different way to get to where they're trying to go because you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Because there's people watching you don't even notice watching you that you're inspiring.
So we're live on the scene at the 120 conference here in Chicago. Eric Thomas 120 conference that we just attended, and it was super, super inspirational, man.
Yes, it was. It was, I think it was worth the price of admission.
It was definitely worth the price of admission.
And
we don't want to say that he could probably raise the price because we don't want to, we don't want to get that price raised before next year just in case we come back.
It's, it used to be a little bit less than that, so. The more it grows, it's probably going to increase anyways. But
definitely.
But
I mean, we got the swag bag, with all the we got the books and all that stuff. So there was a lot included in the price. We got a few. Cooler. Yeah, we got a few things like just weren't they videos or something like that he emailed us to, some trainings.
Oh yeah, some ebooks and stuff.
Yeah, some ebooks and stuff like that. So
I gotta watch those.
There was a lot included in the price, but I just wanted to go over a few of the key takeaways, and there was a ton of them. And to be honest, we walked in, we were super hyped. We started taking videos, we started taking pictures, we started taking notes. Both of our phones died, probably not even halfway through. Our phones died, so I actually stopped taking notes because of that. I wish my phone was still up so I could take more notes, but I try to retain it all up here. So I just jotted down 5 key takeaways that I want to discuss with you, man.
All right, let's do it.
All right, from the meeting. So the first key takeaway that I wrote down that stuck out to me was that you need to figure out who you are, and as you grow, just remember that you're in the most powerful position to service the person you once were. So you as a human being are in the most powerful position to service who you once were. So for me, that would be somebody who, potentially grew up without a dad in their life. It might be somebody who ended up having a kid under the age of 18, somebody who dropped out of high school so that they could take care of their kid, anybody like that. I'm in the most powerful position to help somebody who dealt with the same things or who is currently dealing with the same things that I once dealt with. Mm-hmm. So what's your take on that one?
Rory said that, right? Was that Rory
that was
the guy that he?
Oh yeah, that was who said it. Yeah, he came out at the beginning. He said it, and then he went back in.
Yeah. My takeaway on that is, it sounds so simple. Like if you just look back on how you grew up or the things that you overcame. Now it's kind of like your avatar. It's like, okay, who went through kidney disease that I need to help, or who's going through kidney disease, or who's a cosmetologist that needs to learn how to cut hair, or specialize in hair, or who's married and trying to get to like 23 years, or who wants
married
to
young,
who wants to start their own little business. So many things that you can look back and see where you're at now to where when you're growing up, you're like, I want to be there, and now you're there, and
you can help people, but you're most powerfully placed to help people who are dealing with what you had to, the type of adversity, and just who's trying to do the things that you've already done, basically.
Yeah.
Key takeaway number 2 that I wrote down. All right. Protect your energy. So watch who you spend time with, and make sure the people that you do share time with are on the same wavelength as you. So it all comes down to, you're the average of the top 5 people you spend your most time with. And of course, for some of us, there might be family members that are dragging us down. There might be people who you have a hard time kind of separating yourself from. It might be a sibling. It might be a parent. You know what I mean? It might be, there's people out there that, you really can't completely cut them out of your life. But the whole goal is to just make sure that the people you spend your most time with are on the same wavelength as you.
Yeah. One of those things that you can think about is what Tabitha said, that you don't cut them off. They cut themselves off.
Yeah.
And I tell people that all the time. It's like you can hang out with somebody and you see yourself growing, and they're not growing, and they say that you're different. because you don't do the same things that you once did, partying or drinking or wasting time, wasting money because you want, to better yourself and better the people around you, like your family or whatnot. And then those friends or family that do think that you've changed, they start treating you different. And eventually you just lose contact. And so you didn't necessarily cut them off. They cut themselves off.
They cut themselves off.
Because they were in a space, or they stayed in a space and they never continued to grow.
Or sometimes they get mad at you because you're growing and then they think they're cutting you off. They just, then boom, they cut themselves off. You know what I mean?
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, correct. Key takeaway number 3. You ready for key takeaway number 3? And there's a lot more than what I have written down right here. I wrote down 5.
Oh, man.
I wrote down 5, but there's probably like 50. You know what I mean?
So many.
So key takeaway number 3, you have to build a strong personal character before building a strong personal brand, because your influence will never grow wider than your character runs deep.
That was a good one.
That was a really good one.
That one was Rory too, wasn't it?
That was Rory as well. Yep.
Yeah, that was a good one. So what I got out of that is how you treat people, like how you're. It's kind of like your credit score. It's like you got a good credit score with people, and if you got a bad credit score, what's gonna happen? The banks ain't gonna look at you. People ain't gonna mess with you because you're always lying, or what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Things don't come true. You're gonna say you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, but it doesn't happen. But if you're 100 with people all the time, and true to yourself, true to them, that character is gonna last a lot longer than all the other things.
Yep. Once you build the characters, when you're able to actually get that attention and influence more people, but they have to trust who you are.
Yeah.
You have to be a good person. And if you build a career on a negative pedestal or a real shaky foundation, you know what I mean? The career's probably not going to last very long. You're not going to be influencing a lot of people for a long period of time.
True.
Key takeaway number 4.
Number 4.
We're going to keep it going, man. We're going to keep it going. And this one here is like multifaceted.
Multiple parts to
Multiple parts to this one. And this is basically the whole thing on procrastination, which I've heard this before, but it does open my eyes now, being a little bit older, hearing it again.
Seeing it on a stage, on a screen was a little bit different too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you put procrastination.
Yep. And he says enjoying something isn't a requirement of doing something. And then in parentheses, I wrote, enjoying it has nothing to do with getting it done. So the most successful people on earth, they do things that they don't want to do when they don't want to do them, and they still do those things at a high level. You know what I mean? Michael Jordan has the flu. He probably don't feel like playing basketball, but he goes out there and puts up like 50, 60 points.
Yeah.
And so he played at a high level, even though he had the sweats and he was having a hard time even operating, functioning as a normal person. And then they go over 3 different types of procrastination. There's procrastination as we know it, which is consciously just delaying what we know we should be doing. And then there's creative avoidance, which I think a lot of us are guilty of, which is unconsciously filling the day with like menial work, just
not getting stuff done.
Just basically just doing busy work,
chasing our tail,
doing busy work just to be busy and distracting yourself from what's important. And this is why I always tell people, especially me being in the real estate business and training younger agents, they'll come in and they'll write down a to-do list, and everybody does the same thing, right? They'll write down a to-do list, might be 20 items, and then they just start picking through and doing the easy ones first, right? But for every single person, over the course of your day, only 20% of what you need to do is going to net you the outcome that you're looking for, right? It's the 80-20 rules, the Pareto principle, right? 20% of your action is going to net you 80% of your results. So a lot of people will pick through that list and they'll pick all the unimportant things. They'll beat around that 20% of what's important, right? And then they'll do the things that ain't important. And then they go, well, I was busy all day, I was working, right? But you just did the things that's going to net you that 20% of your results instead of, doing the 20% that's going to net you that 80% of your results. So it's kind of that same thing. And then the third type of procrastination is priority dilution. So unconsciously delaying by allowing your attention to shift to less important tasks. So that's basically what that's basically what I just touched on. The priority dilution, and all of us are guilty of doing this in real estate. Sometimes when you're negotiating a contract, right, you have a home inspection done. And I always tell my clients, like, during this process, we're going to look for health and safety items. We're going to look for high cost items, right? And the inspectors will come back with 30 things wrong with the house, right? And out of the 30 things, 27 of them are minor, right? It might cost you a couple dollars to fix, right? And then there's 3 that are a big deal, right? And I'll have buyers that are like, let's ask the seller to repair all 30 of these things. And it's the same thing I tell them. Like, if you ask them to repair 30, they might say, well, we'll repair almost all of them. We'll do 27 of them. And they'll just pick all the ones that are going to cost them nothing to pick, right? And then they'll come back at us and say, I'm fixing almost everything you want. Like, what more do you want, right? And so it's still important, just pretty much in any facet of, you're going to always, there's a book out there, it's called Eat That Frog. It's by Brian Tracy. And the whole concept of the book is basically, if you're going to eat a frog, if you have to eat a frog, right? If you wake up in the morning, you have to eat a frog, try to eat the ugliest frog first, because then it's going to make the other frogs easier to take down, right? That's the whole concept of the book. And it's kind of the same thing. You're always going to have that list of things you need to do. There's always going to be that long list of repairs that need to be made, but focus on the ones that are important first. Focus on that 2 or 3 that are important first.
Like with the procrastination thing, we went over it last night, like trying to summarize what we do on a daily basis to see where we can elevate ourselves. And you broke it down to, it's basically scheduling. Like, if we delegate a time each day to do certain things on the schedule and continuously stay consistent with that schedule, then that's going to help us, instead of just running here, running there, getting this done, trying to get that done. And then the next day is something different, so, and we started off with basically waking up early enough to, get your workout in. I was talking about get my social media in, so I don't have to chase my tail all day trying to post on different pages while I'm, doing work, dealing with family, and, trying to make phone calls, return emails, and cut hair, So scheduling is a big part of that procrastination piece that we.
Yeah, and if there's any tasks that you can do that you can batch, like, so he mentioned social media, right? So I post a lot of social media videos for real estate, and I can sit down and make 10 to 14 videos over the course of like 3 hours. So if I time block that and I make 13 videos, 14 videos for real estate in that 3-hour time frame, now it's just as simple as setting an alarm to make sure I remember to post it. And some of the stuff I'll schedule ahead of time, you know what I mean? So this comes out automatically. Just another good way of doing that. And then remember, we use the analogy about the juggling. Right?
Yeah.
You're juggling. So like, we're talking about, trying to multitask, which is kind of a myth, right? Whenever you're juggling something, you're technically only throwing one ball at a time, right? And you're only catching one ball at a time. And we all have a ton of balls that we're juggling every single day, right? We got our family, we got our business, we got our work, right? We got our social life. We're all juggling balls, right? And so the one thing that, I also want to point out in that analogy is, if you're juggling all of these different things, you got to remember that those balls are rubber, right? So what happens when you drop a rubber ball?
It'll bounce.
It's going to bounce back up to you. There's only one of those balls that are glass, and that'd be your family ball, right? So if you're going to drop a ball,
important one.
That's the only one you don't want to drop.
That's a good analogy right there.
Discipline becomes dormant in the absence of a dream. So in order to not procrastinate, right, you have to be disciplined, and then your discipline will become dormant in the absence of a dream. So if you stop thinking about the end goal, if you stop dreaming about what you want, if you don't have a plan, and if you're married and you don't have a plan with your spouse, that's another thing. And, if you guys don't have a plan, something to work towards together, you're going to end up in a situation where you just lose all motivation. You don't know where you're heading, right? It's like, if you're sailing a ship and you have no map, you have no destination, you're just going back and forth in the water. It's just like the analogy with soccer, right? Soccer, if you take away the goals from the soccer, all you're doing is running back and forth with no goal. If you take away the nets, you're just running back and forth with no goal, right?
So it's basically, what is your why? That's what it boils down to.
It boils down to what is your why, but it also boils down to specific SMART goals as well, right? So if my goal is to purchase 3 investment properties, right? And I'm like, I want to be an investor, right? I want to purchase 3 investment properties. If I just say, hey, baby, let's buy 3 investment properties and let's leave it at that, right? My focus is going to become a little bit diluted, right? I'm going to be all over the place. I'm not going to be thinking about those 3 investment properties. If I say, let's buy let's buy 3 investment properties by December 31st, 2024, right? Now all of a sudden I have a clear goal, a smart goal. So, now I can work backwards from that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, okay, well, in order to buy 3, if I just wanted to buy 3 townhomes, right, and I need 20% down, and in the neighborhoods I'm looking, the townhomes are $300,000, right? I can work backwards from there. I can say, well, this is what I need for a down payment. This is where I can get my down payment money. I might, save this much. I might, take out a home equity line of credit on my current house for this much of it, right? And I just need to make sure that my debt is here. I need to make sure our credit scores are here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we can just set the goal and then make a plan by working backwards to our current situation.
True.
Anything else you want to touch on with that one, Rob?
On the goals part, no, not really. I mean, you just broke it down just in the simplest form. So
Yep. And then
I think we got a lot of information from a lot of speakers yesterday.
we did. I'm getting excited right now just talking about it, bro. I'm getting fired up. I wrote down 5 key takeaways, and like I said, there's like 50.
Yeah, there's way more, and the key is to basically look yourself in the mirror to see what you need to improve on. And when you do that, I think you take the pressure off of, like I said before, that procrastination part. You're chasing your tail, doing stuff throughout the day, not knowing what you're doing. So if you want to elevate yourself and then elevate others around you, like Jamal said, one man's discipline is the key to, like, I think it said everybody, a lot of other people's success.
Yeah, so you don't know where you don't know the full plan, right? You're not seeing it from an aerial perspective. So you might be a cog in the master plan, but if you don't do what you're supposed to be doing, then the benefit that you were going to add, right? What you were going to give to the world now isn't going to be out there. So you might affect somebody else's situation, right? And they might have to find a different way to get to where they're trying to go because you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Because there's people watching you don't even notice watching you that you're inspiring.
Yeah.
And once you don't have that discipline and don't do what you're supposed to do, what happens? It piles up. It's like, oh, I should have did that when I had the time to do it. How many times have you said that to yourself?
Oh, man, I've said that a lot, man. The thing is funny too is being in my 30s, right, pushing 40, right, is I used to say I don't have no time. I'd be like, I don't have any time, right? And I was a single man, didn't have any time because I had to work all the time, right? Because I worked in a factory. Then I have a kid. Well, I had a kid prior to that, but then I started seeing my daughter even more and more. And I'm like, man, I don't got no time, right? But I have actually less time than I did before. I had time before, right? Then I get married, right? And then we have more kids, and I'm still saying the same thing. I ain't got no time. But it's like if I would have looked back to before I was married with the kids, right? And I actually did have time, right? Then I went to college while I was in work, while I was doing full-time job, right? And I had kids, and I was married. And the whole time I'm still saying the same thing. I don't have any time. But I did have time. I had enough time to figure out how to fit in college and how to fit in having 3 kids and how to fit in having a spouse, right? Mm-hmm. And as no matter what happens, you're always going to say the same thing. I don't have any time. I don't have any time. But there's time out there. You just have to create the time. And so it's just like anything else. Maybe you need to sleep faster. You know what I mean?
Sleep faster.
Maybe you need to sleep faster. Maybe you need to get up. Maybe you need to get up 2 hours earlier. You know
that's what we talk about. Getting up at 5 a.m., get your workout done, get your social media out the way, and then
maybe you need to cut out the reruns of Lost. Maybe you need to cut out the binge watching Netflix.
It's about delegating the time.
Yeah, it's all about creating the time.
Putting the time in somewhere else, that time can be used for something productive.
So this is actually a decent segue to my fifth key takeaway. This is actually a spin on a Les Brown quote, actually. And I'll give you the Les Brown quote if I can remember it, but this is what they said at the conference. So, easy, shorter choices lead to difficult long-term consequences, while difficult long-term choices lead to easy long-term consequences. And the way that Les Brown says it is, he says, do what is easy and your life will become hard. If you do what is hard, then your life will become easy, right? And so it's all about knocking out the things, making, basically it's the same thing as It's a lot about what we just discussed, right? You have to be disciplined enough to do the things that you need to do when you don't want to do them. And at some point, right, you will have built this thing. It's stacking bricks, right? You guys have, I don't know how many people have heard the Will Smith talk where he's talking about how he had his father, somebody in his family made him and his brother build a brick wall from nothing, right? And they would go out there every day and stack a brick. And then over time, they noticed that they had built this whole wall. And so it's just like building a wall. Every day you're stacking a brick, and you need to make sure the brick is straight, right? If the brick is crooked and you start building the next brick off the crooked brick from the day before, right? That wall ain't gonna be straight, right?
Not even straight.
So every day you got to work hard on stacking the straightest brick. Just focus on the one day, making sure you stack the brick as straight as you can. Make sure you have it in place. It's secure, right? It's part of the foundation. And then over time, you'll see that you stacked an entire wall, right? Because days become weeks and weeks become months and months become years and years become decades. And you can look back and say, man, I've been doing this for years. Look at this big wall right here.
Mm-hmm. In other words, don't try to do the shortcuts. Shortcuts like kind of like Chicago traffic. We tried to do some shortcuts on the way.
Yeah, we tried to do some shortcuts on the way here and they end up being long cuts.
Yeah, so stick to the plan, stick to the roadmap. Basically, it's the same thing. Stick to the GPS. The route you're going. Don't try and veer off and do something else to make it easier. You think you're gonna do a shortcut? It's gonna make stuff longer because then you got to go right back and fix it and do it right. Go right back to the same lane that you was in before.
Yep.
When you could have been a little bit further down the road, but you take a shortcut, it's gonna lead you right back because whatever you're gonna miss out on, you got to go back and get anyways. So it's the same way as traveling, the same way in life. So it's about discipline.
It's all about discipline, man. I think we said this before.
Discipline, yeah, discipline. That's what it all goes back. It all goes back to the same thing.
Yeah,
having discipline.
It's really not like a secret sauce, but at the same time, we got to remind ourselves on a daily basis of what we need to do. So,
yeah, and there's so many forms of discipline. It's self-discipline is the first one though.
Yeah.
You have to have discipline of self before you have discipline of anything. Because if you don't mentally have that self-discipline about you and what you have to do, it's like we got to get up at, that's natural, right? We have to get up. Okay, but what time do we have to get up? We create that time. Mm-hmm. It's up to us to create that time. It's not a given we're going to get up, but more than likely we're going to wake up. So are we going to set the alarm for 6? Or, you know what? I'm going to have the discipline not to hit the snooze at 5 and get up at 5.
Yeah, it all goes back to, there's a book out there. It's called The 5-Second Rule. Can't remember the lady who wrote it.
I've heard of that before, but I don't remember exactly.
It's a good book, but she talks about how, her whole life is in shambles, and she created the 5-second rule, which is basically, she imagined a rocket blasting off, right? And she said her alarm goes off, and she says 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it jumps to her feet. And what happens is it activates your prefrontal cortex, right? And it throws you off because you're counting backwards, right? So it kind of wakes you up, kind of shakes you out of, what you're doing, because you have to think slightly more to count backwards, right? And you jump to your feet. And really, she puts it into, it's Mel Robbins, that's her name. So she puts the whole process into everything she does, right? She needs to make a phone call, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just do it, right? You need to, you know what I mean? You need, no matter what you need to do, she needs to go to the gym. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, grab your gym bag, just go, right? Don't give your mind time to talk you out of it, right? Mm-hmm. Because, our brains are designed to keep us comfortable, right? And so there's a lot of things that we got to do that ain't naturally comfortable, but you have to do them, right? So you just have to do it before your brain has time to talk you out of it. Well, Rob, this is a nice little episode, right? Little mobile episode on the road at undisclosed location in Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to be able to do this part is cool, give our viewers something different, a different look,
definitely.
And then to go to the conference, get some of the same knowledge, and get inspired by the same people.
Yeah.
We got some of the same books to read and bounce back off of each other. I think this is a good experience.
It's a great experience, man. I would definitely do it again.
Yeah. Especially meeting some of the people that we actually watch, podcasts of, and taking pictures, and then getting to know some other people that gave us some very, very important information.
Yep. I'd agree, man. I'd agree.
Now I need to become a New York Times bestseller. That's been the goal. So, I might have to call Rory, start a payment plan or something. Put some on layaway.
Watch me educate. Yeah, we been coulda started, but it's never late. Do it for my kids, yeah, let's set it straight. Do it for your kids, gotta set it straight. It's time to regulate.